Hey, I'm in Galatians chapter 2, and I want to show you when Paul rebuked Peter. And, I have down here Galatians 2:16 highlighted. And, it's one of my favorite verses in the Bible. It's a great soul-winning verse. It's a great verse to meditate on. But, sometimes we forget that, and yes, of course we can use this verse, okay? But sometimes we forget that Paul said this to Peter. Okay, and I'm going to show you it. Peter needed to be reminded of this, so we'll get down here in a moment. Let's start at verse 11 in Galatians chapter 2, verse 11, right? But when Peter was come to Antioch, I withstood him to the face, because he was to be blamed. For before that, certain men came from James. He did eat with the Gentiles. But when they were come, he withdrew and separated himself, fearing them which were of the circumcision, right, the Jews. Verse 13. And the other Jews disassembled likewise with him, insomuch that Barnabas also was carried away with their dissimulation. Verse 14. But when I saw that they walked not uprightly according to the truth of the gospel, I said unto Peter before them all, if thou, being a Jew, livest after the manner of the Gentiles, and not as do the Jews, why compellest thou the Gentiles to live as do the Jews? Right, so a brief pause here. Paul's telling Peter, basically, Peter, you don't even, you're a Jew, but you don't even live like a Jew. You live after the manner of the Gentiles. So why are you compelling the Gentiles to live as Jews do? Right? And then it says, we who are Jews by natures and not sinners of the Gentiles, knowing that a man is not justified by the works of the law, but by the faith of Jesus Christ. Even we have believed in Jesus Christ, that we might be justified by the faith of Christ and not by the works of the law. For by the works of the law shall no flesh be justified. And Peter had to be reminded of this. Okay? And, it's not specific about, exactly what Peter was doing and eating that was after the manner of the Gentiles. But look, I'm not saying 100% sure. I'm not saying 100% this is what it was, but it could have been pork, okay? Because the only two groups that don't really eat pork as groups are Jews and Muslims. And this was before Muhammad and Satan invaded Islam, okay? So back then, Jews might have been the only people that didn't eat pork. So maybe Peter was having a pulled pork sandwich, who knows, right? But he was doing something that the Jews would not do, right? And when the Jews showed up, Peter had a lapse of faith, and he basically tried to act like he was going back to the law. Then down here, Paul says, knowing that a man is not justified by the works of the law, but by the faith of Jesus Christ. Even we have believed in Jesus Christ, that we might be justified by the faith of Christ and not by the works of the law. For by the works of the law shall no flesh be justified. But if, while we seek to be justified by Christ, we ourselves are found sinners, is therefore Christ the minister of sin? God forbid. For if I build again the things which I destroyed, I make myself a transgressor. For I through the law am dead to the law, that I might live unto God. I am crucified with Christ, nevertheless I live, not I, but Christ liveth in me. The life which I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. I do not frustrate the grace of God, for if righteousness come by the law, then Christ is dead in vain. And, the video I talked about yesterday about, whether or not we can eat pork. And, the short answer is yes, and check out that video. Yes, if you want to. But look, the nation of Israel, they had these dietary laws, okay? And, they got caught up in them so much where they thought that what was gonna make them righteous, and they thought that the Gentiles were inferior because they ate different things, and also that they weren't circumcised, right? When I talked about yesterday that there were some Judaizers that in Paul's day they tried to convince saved Christians that they had to be circumcised to be saved. Okay, and that's something following the line. Look, can you imagine? Because the Bible says in Ephesians 2:8-9, for by grace are you saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it is the gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast. Can you imagine somebody trying to boast before God how righteous they are because they had a piece of their foreskin cut off? When Jesus Christ was tortured for them on a cross, shed his blood for them so that they could be saved, died on that cross, was buried and rose again on the third day for their justification. And they want to brag about their foreskin. Unbelievable, okay? It's madness. Look, knowing that a man, and look, he was reminding Peter because, he knew that Peter knew this, but Peter, sort of forgot it or had, he definitely had a lapse of faith and judgment. And, and you too, Christian, you should already know this, knowing, okay, that a man is not justified by the works of the law, but by the faith of Jesus Christ. Even we have believed in Jesus Christ, that we might be justified by the faith of Christ, and not by the works of the law. For by the works of the law shall no flesh be justified. Okay, why? Here's why. Because if righteousness come by the law, then Christ is dead in vain. Therefore, in Galatians 2:21, it says, I do not frustrate the grace of God, for if righteousness come by the law, then Christ is dead in vain.